I don't know why I like it. I just always have.
This is a conscious effort on our part to open the creative envelope, so to speak, in order to entertain you in a more contemporary manner. Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word in that phrase is entertainment.
Vince McMahon has lost his mind. The man doesn't have it anymore.
We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted.
Have you watched the television show lately?
We also think that you're tired of the same old simplistic theory of good guys versus bad guys. Therefore, we've embarked upon a far more innovative and contemporary creative campaign that is far more invigorating and extemporaneous than ever before.
Because while Doink the Clown had a green hair and a rubber nose, Stone Cold Steve Austin was drinking his first beer in ECW, damn you. Oh, we got attitude. You got nothing, man.
As the times have changed, so have we.
Let it be said that this podcast is like a fairy tale. Like Alice through the looking glass, we are looking through beer glasses. This is Beyond The Beermat. That was fucking tenuous, but who gives a shit? My name is Stuart Quigley. Alongside me is Matt. Just Matt.
Hello, Stuart.
Yay. As you can tell, we are so excited for today's show that we have had a few adult beverages previously, which in and of itself, a sort of hop, skip and a jump away from the little preamble that I'm going to get onto before we get onto today's main podcast topic.
Listen up, motherfuckers. We've had a few beers and we're recording a podcast.
To be honest, I would expect they'd assume that anyway.
Sure.
You don't need to literally force your fist down on the table.
That's what you're listening to, yeah?
Yeah.
All up in this motherfucker.
I look forward to showing this to our kids.
Excellent.
And speaking of beers, before we get on to the main topic at hand, the question I want to ask you is, right, it's a very sort of lifestyle heavy question, which in effect, we're not actually limiting ourselves to the discussion of wrestling today, but I want to go in, not just the philosophy of wrestling in general, but the philosophy of us, because that's the kind of amount of beers that we've had today, which is, if you could have a wrestler, if you could pick a wrestler to be your manager in everyday life, like, now you know how wrestlers have managers and things, like Paul Heyman and that. Here's my thing, you can't use Paul Heyman because he's the most obvious choice.
Sure. Okay.
But like, the jobs that Paul Heyman would do for Brock Lesnar, they would do for you in your everyday life.
Like your day-to-day activities?
Like, they would sort out your itinerary, they would maybe contact friends that you want to get in touch with, and most fundamentally of all, you would be hanging around with them on a day-to-day basis.
So an actual manager then, not just a random wrestler, not a manager.
Yeah, any wrestler you can pick.
Okay.
And the reason why I say any wrestler you can pick is because, as I said, the beers are flowing, the ideas are flowing. There's a small part of me that thought when I created this question that Austin would be a good shout. However, I think he's a bad shout because I think he'd turn on me so fucking quickly. Like,
you get pissed all day, you won't do anything. He loves them beers.
I mean, yeah, it'd be great crack, like hanging around with Steve Austin all day, every day. But I do get the feeling that in terms of my own productivity, it might not be the best for me. So I need to think of someone that would be good and fun to hang around with, but would actually work within whatever my lifestyle is as is.
I don't want to piss all over your wonderful question, because it was a nice question.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep.
That's what we do.
Too involved, Stu.
The deep dive. We want to go lower than...
Am I getting the wrestler or the actual person? Am I getting the performer? Am I getting the character? Is that what I'm getting?
So, okay, just to extrapolate on your sub-question. If you say Kane, are you getting Glenn Jacobs, or are you getting some fellow in a red mask walking around all day setting fires?
Yeah. Who am I getting?
I'm going to say wrestler, like as in character, barring one or two maybe obvious examples.
That's a toughie.
I haven't got one definitively.
How have you not got one definitively? It can't be that hard. My mind's saying Shane McMahon.
Okay.
He's a multi-millionaire.
It's a good
investor in things and people. Yes, he lost £1 billion by investing in Chinese markets and that.
Okay.
Yes, he did that, but he's got the network, the support system around him to make sure that his dreams come to fruition. Although my brain's telling me that,
feel like I know where you're going. Yeah.
My body's saying Cesaro.
Oh, really?
Well, you're not expecting Cesaro?
No.
He's European.
And?
He's Swiss.
Yes.
The Swiss have got it going on.
That's a good point, actually. Practically, see, the problem is I'm coming at this from a emotional standpoint, and you're coming at this from a practical standpoint, which is quite interesting. And like, how have we gone this far without mentioning Scott Steiner? Your calendar would be shot to shit.
What the fuck?
And your day-to-day life would be a cavalcade of mayhem, and you have no idea from whence you are going from one location to the next.
Imagine a day with Scott Steiner. You wake up in the morning.
And he's in charge of your life, basically, at this point.
You wake up in the morning, he's stood over your bed. Gym. Oh, right. Come on in, Scotty. We got
this is
gym,
okay.
maths lesson. Eat a shitload of eggs. Back to the gym.
Bit more maths.
Yeah, a bit more maths. Cut a promo. Go to bed. Every fucking day. No, you can keep that Cesaro all day long.
That's a fucking great shout, I'm not going to lie. Unfortunately, like, I'm now tasked mentally with the idea of coming up with someone that's better than that. So I'll just... No, I don't think you can beat that. Because from pure, like... Everything that you know about Cesaro is that, like, he's reliable.
Yes.
From his, like, just his reputation. And the fact that, like... I don't think I've heard this anywhere. I don't think I've read this anywhere. But purely on the... And again, in wrestling, you definitely don't want to lean into stereotypes too hard. But the Swiss, very organised. I feel like you would be very efficient during your day if Cesaro was your manager.
Just pick any European wrestler. You could have Alex Wright.
Oh, hello.
He's a German. Jesus Christ, you want to get efficient and get somewhere in life. Be more like Alex Wright.
Imagine if Vince Russo was there. Like, you'd be there thinking, okay, I'm going to go to, like, my significant other's birthday party, and then you turn up and you've suddenly gone to a very different place altogether, and it's a midget version of your significant other.
Yeah, I don't know. Who else could you pick? Who else is that reliable?
Shane's a good show. Cesaro's a good show.
You know what I would like, though?
Go on.
This is my heart talking again. I'd have the Big Show.
That'd be good.
I love the Big Show. You'd look like a celebrity wherever you went.
There is an element.
You've got a giant stood behind you.
There is an element of, if you really wanted to lean into this, you could just be like, okay, I'll just pick the biggest bastard I can find and then just go around people I don't like with this fella.
Why would you do that? You're not using it for the right means.
What? Like, I want to solve personal grudges and now I have the means to solve it?
I guess so. You know they're like performers though. You know, like in real life, the Big Show isn't actually hard.
Okay, let me ask
He's
you.
no Danny Dyer. He's no Vinnie Jones.
Okay, fine.
He's no Phil Mitchell.
Let's just, Jesus Christ, I thought I'd talk about like taking a leap. Let's just presuppose, which also, when I say presuppose, suppose everything's fine, right? Is there a single person in your day-to-day life that you would be like, oh, if I sicked the Big Show on him, he'd find it a bit difficult?
Yeah, of course.
In your day-to-day life. This is like the equivalent of me sitting in a drinking establishment and like there's some dickhead in the background chatting shit about Liverpool and it's like, Big Show's not going to have a problem with him. There isn't a single person that we come across, pause on that would be like, even if Big Show's like the biggest pacifist of all time, he could just put them to sleep and then that'd be that. With his hand, not even with his arms.
Or what, just an iron claw to the face?
Yeah.
There's a lot of assholes in the world. They ain't got a lot to lose, Stu.
Yeah, I know, but we don't...
They take on the Big Show for the laugh, wouldn't they? For a crack.
So you're suggesting that if we invite the Big Show into our lives as our manager / representation of life, then we suddenly allow more arseholes into our lives because they go for it?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Probably the opposite.
More people to stay away.
I would have thought so.
Here's my only other question, actually, which is slightly more niche than this, and I'm using the Big Show as the perfect example, which is, given our day-to-day general activities and general life, I'm not entirely sure the Big Show would fit in many drinking establishments that we go in.
I know,
certainly, I can't imagine him playing snooker.
I don't want to bring up personal preference.
Yeah.
But do you like a beer?
I am indeed preferential to a delicious adult beverage.
Do you like working the hours you choose?
That I choose?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like the idea of knowing that the person at the top of the card, aka your boss, will never get paid more than you get paid?
Okay, yeah.
Scott Hall in WCW.
Ooh.
There you go.
Not only that, he and I do also have a history, which is to say I got his autograph once and he was nice.
You waited outside some pissing down W.H. Smith in Birmingham, the best part of 24 years ago, and he signed your book. He probably remembers you.
Clearly, this is why
Well, he listens to this.
there's no doubt, yeah. You keep, like, just slamming him down for his alcoholism, which is, like, just from a personal standpoint, I'm assuming he loves listening to it. That's why he keeps tuning in. It's like a personal motivational reminder.
Hang on a minute, it was only the last podcast that we did. You were having a little go at Jeff Hardy because he enjoyed the pop.
I think
These are athletic people
I've got one.
that put a strain on their body.
I've got
and you're
one.
not going to let them have a beer now and again.
You're going to fucking shit all over me here.
I will.
Yeah, you will. As someone to guide you through life and has the right mix of everything that we need.
DDP. I can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your
it's
eyes,
not.
Stu.
No, you see, you went with a very holistic sort of, he will get me into shape and I'll be the best version of me. But
Yeah.
I don't really want to be the best version of me. I want to be like sitting around drinking, recording, a bit more drinking. It's like Scott Steiner in the maths, but not quite.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to roll your eyes, you're going to give me a noise of, discontent, but Jericho's not a bad shot either.
What the fuck do you want to hang around with Jericho for?
He enjoys a beverage. He knows what it takes to snide his way to the top. So I like the idea of someone who has enough about him to actually make me better at what I am. If nothing else, I could just tell everyone I am, because that's what he did.
Fun story. I've got to be rather careful about what I say here. But my best mate from Southampton, his girlfriend used to be the PA for Chris Jericho when he did his tours over here with Fozzy. Yeah, he's from what I heard, I didn't speak to her directly, through the boyfriend. He was a bit flaky at best.
In terms of...
Yes, he's a real person with real emotions. And I'm not saying he's a bit of a shithouse or a bit of a nasty one.
He's a real person with real emotions.
But he is a bit temperamental, a bit hit and miss. When someone's pissed off, you don't particularly want to be around them, especially if they're pissed off at you. When someone's a bit melancholy, you don't really want to be knocking about with them either. I know it's not the liberal thing to say, we should be giving everyone time, but he's a bit flaky, he's a bit all over the shop.
The only context I have for that is when I listen to his actual podcast, which, when I'm listening to his podcast, I think to myself, man, if only I could be listening to Beyond The Beermat, that would be a much better wrestling podcast to listen to. And when he goes from segment to segment, and there's a little element of, it's hard to decipher Jericho the man from the character a little bit. He feels like he's performing far too often.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like he's put a shell up of this character rather than actually being the person.
When you hear him talk to people that he's known for a long time, when he does like the crew stuff with like Chavo and anyone from WCW, and like even when he does the podcasts with like pretty much anyone from the Attitude Era, like the one with Triple H, who they have reported heat with each other. There's a certain camaraderie there and a certain togetherness there. Sort of belies the actual human being, and I like the actual human being when I hear him, and that's why I said I think Jericho will be it, because he seems to me old school wrestling in terms of loves to go out, have a few beers. Again, that's a massive plus point. Basically, I need someone to go out on the piss with, and also get me out of bed in the morning to get to my appointments.
Yeah, all I would say about old Jericho is what you mentioned briefly, being professional in that. Hell of a businessman.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about, so now we're going to talk about him as a wrestler. If you want to talk about a little, I shouldn't say little because he finds that very derogatory, but if you're going to talk about a smaller performer that's made one hell of a career for himself, that is now a multi-millionaire that can invest and buy their own companies, then Chris Jericho would be the one.
I still think Cesaro is the actual answer, but
definitely.
well done for playing.
Them Swiss, they've got all the monies, haven't they?
Okay.
Fucking, you don't even need them to find you a job. Just run on in.
Let's not dig into Swiss money, because it generally tends to lead to a bad route.
Okay.
Right, in terms of the main meat of this discussion today, and as I mentioned before, this is going to lead into many different avenues that aren't necessarily wrestling. So if this is the first time you're listening, we generally tend to speak about sports entertainment slightly more than we might today. But we've had this conversation off air a few times, and I think it's important to bring it to the table. That was a reference to a network show that's no longer with us.
Cancelled.
Yeah, it was alright.
JBL. That's all I've got to say. The biggest issue there.
All he was trying to do is just play the smarks. And WWE does this a lot. The whole Rousey stuff before WrestleMania was just, we know what makes them angry, so let's do it so that they can have some sort of buzz. Negative buzz in wrestling is the same. But anyway, slightly underrated / slightly terrible WWE networks aside, we literally sit opposite each other right now as we speak, having the time of our lives. We are in the midst of our late youth. Yeah, teenage years carry on to at least your late 30s these days. Hope so, I don't want to get old. But we literally sit on opposite sides of the table when it comes to the idea of spoilers. I don't want to know what's going on when I go into Raw, SmackDown, or a pay-per-view. Whereas you want to know everything going in, don't you?
Of course.
When I read Monday Night Raw, forgive me for not watching it live. I used to do it for many years in a row, and I think it's better to actually watch it than read it. But I'm at a point in my life now where staying up to 4 a.m. and then going to a full-time job. Spoiler alert, we don't sit around drinking and recording about wrestling as our main occupation. Yeah, that was good. So I can't do that anymore. But reading it puts me off watching it. It's much better to just watch it, go in, no preconceptions, no, I don't know what's going to happen, and then judge it from there, as opposed to the moment I read what happens, I've already made up my mind before I've seen it.
That's the difference. I've now actually started watching it, and when I say watch, I like to condense 3 hours of Raw and 2 hours of SmackDown into 30-minute chunks. There's highlights on YouTube, would you believe it? Why sit and watch all that shit when you can just see, I use this term rather lightly, but highlights of the actual programme. And so, I'll tell you what, if I was reading what's being actually shown, you're going to have more of a negative view on it. You really are.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too sidetracked by this either, because we want to talk about spoilers, but I'll tell you what, the problem with reading anything is you're always going to have the writer's sort of bias towards it, aren't you?
That's a point I hadn't thought of, actually. Yeah, fair play.
You're always going to have that issue there. If you watch the shit that they're trying to feed you anyway,
you form your own.
Yeah, you've got your own opinions about it.
And even that has to be filtered through the commentators, but yeah.
Yeah, but only so much.
It's a huge difference, but there's a difference between reading it, watching it, and watching it with the commentary on.
Right, hearing it essentially.
Yeah.
Now we just have to find out what it's like to taste it. All the senses must be involved.
Does that mean we have to like run in the ring and like attack Bret Hart next year?
Or lick Becky Lynch. Anywho, let's talk about spoilers. So like I said, I'm on the other side of the fence, and I think you find young Stuart, I know opinions can neither be right nor wrong, but on this occasion, 93% of the audience, of the listening audience, will agree with me. They'd rather know what's going to happen. It's today's modern society. You don't want surprises, you don't want shocks to the system. You want to know exactly what's happening.
Okay, here's the tack on to the discussion we were having pre-podcast, which is anticipation is a dangerous thing, I feel like, because anticipation falls into one of two categories. It's either going to fulfill everything that I wanted, and that's a high bar to clear most of the time.
Yeah.
So what you're leaving, again, with your like 93.7% sort of drop-off, is you're letting yourself open for disappointment 90% of the time. That's what anticipation does. So it's easier, rather than looking forward to something, to skip to the end and go, I'm going to avoid any sort of disappointment, potentially, because I'm not going to get up for it in the first place. I'm just going to go, instead of from point A to point B, let's go straight to point B. Like, I don't need point A when I have access to point B in the first place. And I think the thing you said about no one likes surprises is slightly similar in the sense that bad surprises, they're bad. Like, bad anything is bad. And good surprises, like, you can know good surprises in advance because at the end of it, it's good. So with a surprise, you're a little bit like, there's no real scenario in that where it works out better for you. Because a bad surprise is bad full start, and a good surprise, why wait that long?
Exactly. So buy into the spoiler, find out whatever your surprise is, and just go to point B.
Yeah, but
just find out what you want. What I don't get is for people that want to wait for things to come out and, oh, don't tell me spoilers, is if you want a certain outcome to happen, then why don't you just go out and get that outcome? Why don't you go and grab it? Because for the let's talk about, we're going to strictly stay on wrestling rather than any other,
at least.
Yeah, rather than any other current events that might be out in the world of cinema at the moment.
And or on TV on Sky Atlantic that I can't watch.
Sure. Everything is becoming Hollywood. So you know what that means. Everything is giving you the happy Hollywood, send the audience home happy outcome, especially when it comes to major entertainment events.
Which is the form of storytelling, really.
Yeah, if you got the audience's attention, then guess what? You're making money. And if you're keeping the audience happy, you're making money for a long time. And that's what every form of entertainment is essentially trying to do.
I know we spoke about this recently about WWE sending them home happy.
Yeah.
But they haven't done that for a while. So is this like WWE just jumping on to what's going on? Or
no, they should have been doing it for donkey's years. And whilst we're saying they haven't been doing it, they have when it comes to WrestleMania.
Generally.
They don't do it at Royal Rumble because it still gives you 3 months to build a story, and make it right. SummerSlam is the sort of dead period for wrestling anyway, so they can do what they please, basically, and test the waters.
I read a thing before WrestleMania that actually I hadn't thought about, but kind of sums it up. WrestleMania is for marks, SummerSlam is for smarks. In that at SummerSlam we tend to get what we would have liked at WrestleMania, but they can't do that because they're sort of trying to get new people in. And now that that wave's gone, we get what we should have got at SummerSlam. SummerSlam, even though the matches might not necessarily be more high profile, the stories, the way that the matches work, there's less pressure for a start as well. It's smart WrestleMania, basically.
Yeah, well, you can't disagree with it. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
So SummerSlam might be one instance where you don't want a spoiler, but even then, for the likes of SummerSlam, however grand they make it out to be, do you really want to sit there for 5 hours for SummerSlam? Do you want to sit there for 6 hours for SummerSlam? No, of course you're not. You're going to be in the same boat as watching Raw and SmackDown. You're just going to read the results and then go, oh right, okay, so that happened. Maybe I will give it a watch after all. Well, I've saved myself 5 hours. I'm not going to bother watching it.
Okay. I think this comes down to, and I know we said we tried to stick specifically to wrestling, but it's not just a point that's limited to that. The difference between my perspective and yours is that the story that you're being told, you get more from it if you know all the beats in between, because it's more rewarding to know the guy, the hero at the end of the story, comes out with whatever he was trying to get, if you know that like he had all these things to overcome in first instance, and there were certain people he had to like fight maybe, or obstacles in life. He was really afraid of the water, and then at the end of it he swam across the English Channel to save his missus. I don't know, like I'm literally just throwing in plot details with no point. If you just skip to the end and just go, oh, the guy swam the English Channel or whatever, you just go, oh, okay, he did a thing. But the only reason it works, the only reason it matters, is if you know why that's important. The details, the spoilers should be the why. The spoilers should be the week in and week out. If I'm going into Raw and SmackDown completely clean slate, they should be telling me why I need to care a WrestleMania or a pay-per-view. Like, regardless of the credence to the show, I should be being told on a weekly basis why these things are important. And then when you get to a big event, I have all this indefinite knowledge of the journey that X character has took.
Why you should care that much?
As opposed to if I read Raw or SmackDown without having watched it, I see the results, and again, the point that you made earlier, which is a fantastic point, of it's through the guy who's reviewed the show's eyes. And I also think as well that it's really hard to, and books have done this for years, so I don't know how this quite translates, so it's difficult, but like when you read a book and there's like some sort of action sequence, you sort of picture it in your head. I don't think the written version of a wrestling match translates anywhere near as well.
No, because they're basically just saying the moves, aren't they, rather than it happening on the fly.
Well, there's a difference between like X wrestler does this, X wrestler does this. When you read a book of like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings is a dumb example. They don't just go, man has sword, man puts sword here. Like, they don't list the moves.
Okay, so here's the question, and we don't want to get too sidetracked again, and we don't want to go over old ground. If WrestleMania is the showcase, and it's the culmination of stories, and coincidentally it also happens to attract the largest of the casual fans, how has the current WrestleMania attracted anyone when all these casuals haven't watched Raw and SmackDown leading up to it? They don't know about Kofi Kingston's backstory. They don't know about Becky Lynch's struggle.
Can I use the comic book example? And I read certain comics. I've dipped out of it in recent years, but like I used to collect the comics. And when you're in that world and you know what's coming in what sort of realm, and you know, like, okay, Spider-Man's doing this at the minute, Thor's doing this, Batman's doing this, etc., and so on and so on. And then when you're in that world, you hear like, okay, such and such as a writer, it's even more smarky than fucking wrestling actually. Such and such as a writer is going to take this character and put him in this storyline to like, I don't know, Superman's going to appear in Batman for the next few issues. And I'm not saying that you would go as a comic book fan that's reading week in and week out, oh, Superman's there. That's all right. That's fine. But as a sort of outsider looking in, you go, okay, Superman and Batman together. That might be the point where you jump on. So, in that instance, when you're saying about WrestleMania, all these characters that you don't necessarily know the backstory of, you only need to know one or two big people, and the hope would be that you know who Triple H is, you know who Batista is, you know who Ronda Rousey is.
Yeah.
They're the three, I think, at this year's WrestleMania that you would have enough of a profile of to just go, I want to see what they're doing. And then when, say, you read your Superman and Batman issue, there's like some side character in there, you're like, I like this person as well.
Then you explore more into them.
Yeah.
So again, getting away from spoilers, I think that's probably more of a reflection on us as individuals. And I think it covers off a lot of aspects in life anyway, so not just wrestling. So you talked about comics being one of your hobbies. So I listen, like most people do, it's like a job CV. It's, I like going to the cinema and listening to music and socialising. But of course you fucking do it.
Most people just don't get drunk and record their thoughts.
Yeah. I'd rather listen to a band once they've already split up.
Really?
Why is that? Yeah, because then...
To complete...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like an uphill battle trying to catch up on as much. If you're interested in something, you're not trying to catch up on as much. You've only got a limited time frame. And that's probably why I've gone back and watched all the bloody pay And that's probably why I've gone back and watched all the bloody pay-per-views, because there's only so much knowledge you can consume at that stage. It's not building up like a massive pile of things. So, what's one of my main enjoyments or hobbies in life? Learning and reading about wrestling. So I try to consume on a weekly basis as much as I can. And yes, it's still exciting to hear about these little revelations about certain individuals. So from, if they're an indie wrestler, all the way up to like big leagues, no matter what stage they're at, because we're at this set time frame, I can learn as much as I can, and then anything that comes after is just like, oh, that's a little tidbit of information, a little chicken nugget of wisdom that I can learn about. And it's sort of controlled. The thing is, like we were talking about earlier, if we're talking about comic books or films that are happening at the moment, if you're not up to that point already, then it's easier just to try and consume it in a short amount of time. So reading a 10-minute article about what happened in a certain film or what happened at SmackDown and Raw. And so that's why I prefer to do it that way.
I do think, again, I'm going to go in about 50 different directions here, so apologies if I start ranting. I do think there's an element of, I know we take the piss out of the divide between sports and sports entertainment, but I do think there's an element of sport in wrestling in the sense of when you get like a big boxing match, as an example. I do think any sport across the world, whatever you want to call it, when it gets to those moments, those key moments, the moments that define the sport, it helps if you know everything that's gone into that. You get more out of it if you know everything that's gone into that moment. Like the Ryder Cup, for example, if you know about Darren Clark and his wife dying and all the emotion that went into that moment, then, you know, it's better as a moment. But it doesn't take away from the moment itself. The other thing I would say as a question is there's a difference between reading Raw and SmackDown on a week-to-week basis and knowing what's going to happen before you see it. And like we mentioned WrestleMania. If going into this year's WrestleMania, as an example, and it happens at the Rumble as well, but like Rumble's perfect for it. If going into this year's WrestleMania, I'd read something that said Hulk Hogan's coming out. I mean, ironically enough, Hulk Hogan coming out did nothing for me. But there's a moment when you get someone coming out that you didn't expect, that you go, oh, fuck you know, it elicits something. If I'd read going into WrestleMania 31, I want to say, the NWO and DX are going to come out during Sting and Triple H. If I'd read that in advance, that would have severely detracted from my elation watching it, is what I would say. So there's a difference between reading a report of a show before it's broadcast. And I do think there's an element to that you don't necessarily get this in America, because if Raw and SmackDown was broadcast here, live, it's like 8 till 10, there's a difference between that and it being broadcast over here between 1 and 4 a.m.
So, we're going to get away from wrestling now. I want to talk about your favourite soccer team. The mighty Everton.
Hey!
Right, so Liverpool. They're on the brink of winning. Oh shit, touch wood.
By the time this has come out, we'll probably have already got 97 points and still finish second. So, touch wood. That's not a cue to masturbate.
Excellent. Liverpool have this whole long heritage where they've won multiple European leagues, other leagues, things. All right, you know more about it than I do. But guess what? When did they last win the Premier League?
No, but they've never won the Premier League. Last First Division title was, I believe, 1990.
Right, so they've got this heritage behind them where they haven't won the league in, the best part of 30 years now. You could argue that since they've won, this is the heritage, and this is essentially their story, building them up to that grand moment where they get their 15 minutes of fame in the spotlight. You haven't got time in a lifetime to watch every single match since their incarnation of winning their first European League.
I agree, but this comes back to what I said earlier. In sport, if you watch the end moment, And the end moment in this is Liverpool being finally crowned as Premier League champions. Please hashtag it have actually happened around the time this podcast comes out.
Touchwood.
Touchwood.
Touchwood. Not
get your knob out, yeah. Well, to be fair, if we did win the league, I'd get my knob out, yeah. The point being, in real sport, and again, like I said that as like such a fucking dickhead, the little moments of failure, the little moments of slip-up, they all add to the narrative, they all add to the thing, and when Liverpool do win the league, it'll be a 30-year journey or whatever, because that's just history. That's the way it works. When it comes to either film, TV, comic, or wrestling, these are things that are written beforehand, so it's not quite the same. That'd be like us going into the last game of the season and then someone turning around to me and going, oh, I've already seen this, Liverpool have won it.
All right, well, let's put it this way then. We're going to get away from real sport, which we shouldn't be saying. Let's talk about Walking Dead. Let's talk about Neighbours. Let's talk about EastEnders. Let's talk about literally any form of entertainment. Little Jimmy, little 10-year-old Jimmy.
You're about our truth friend.
Okay, not little Jimmy. Change his name.
Little
Matt from many years ago wants to watch Walking Dead from the very start.
Yeah.
You can't have a go at him for watching the season 8 finale saying, oh, that was a fucking spoiler, you should have watched it, shame on you. It doesn't make a difference. I'm going to timestamp this like a motherfucker. At the time of recording this, Avengers has just come out. You can't have a go at someone in 2 years' time. It doesn't make a difference.
Whether in 2 years? No,
you can't have a go at me now for reading a spoiler when in 2 years' time someone's going to read the spoiler because they can't be fucked to watch the last 15 films.
Okay, but there is a difference between that and, again...
The difference is, apparently, I'm ruining it for everyone else if I talk about it because they haven't seen it yet.
What you mean,
well, too fucking bad. The spoilers are out for everyone to read it.
It's not your choice.
It's my choice to talk about it. There's nothing wrong. If someone doesn't want to hear me talking about it, then go and sit in the other room. Okay,
again, we're going to have to use a very personal example, right? A very literal example of what happened earlier today. Avengers Endgame has just recently came out, as you said. I saw it as early as possible. One of the reasons I saw it as early as possible is because avoiding spoilers is not just staying off the internet. You can go, you don't have to try, and someone will tell you, and someone will say. And when we were at the train station earlier today, getting ready to come here, and you're shouting out who dies at the end.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
You've ruined it.
Yeah. The people around you have no warning, have no sign, and at that point, yeah, okay, they maybe not have to be listening, but you didn't give them a choice.
But I don't see how that ruins their enjoyment of it. Maybe that's what I don't get then, the enjoyment of it. If you tell me a wrestling pay-per-view that happened 3 years ago, and I don't know the outcome of it, and you tell me what happens, I'll be
There's a huge difference.
I'm still going to watch it, and I might still enjoy it.
There's a huge difference between you watching a wrestling pay-per-view, knowing the ending, and it was 3 years ago, versus a film that came out a few days ago.
I found out what happened at the end of Saw. You even said you found out what happened at the end of The Sixth Sense.
During the film.
Midway through the film.
Yeah.
You're still going to enjoy the film.
I didn't. It ruined it for me.
So you're never going to watch The Sixth Sense again?
I've never seen it since.
I don't blame you. I've never watched it all the way through.
I'm just saying that, like, the idea of maybe not a twist, maybe not a Vince Russo style storyline, but the whole point of narrative and storytelling is that you go into any A to B sort of thing, and this is the whole point of going straight to B. Mm-hmm. Like, how can your emotions be pulled in the same way that the filmmakers themselves, like when you're going into a film where it's like, okay, we want the audience to feel like this, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this character, have this happen to them, and because of that the audience will feel sympathy, or maybe not, and then we'll swerve it, and then the character we wanted them to feel sympathy for turns out to be a bastard. But whatever emotions that you're supposed to feel along the way, it should be like a clean slate. It should be, in terms of the quote-unquote art form, and I'm not saying this for films or TV or this or that, I include wrestling in this, it should be you're allowed to experience it through completely fresh eyes. If you went into next year's Royal Rumble, if on the day of you read a thing that said Dwayne's coming back and is going to win it, that would be slightly different than you watch it and then Dwayne comes out and wins it.
Yeah, I still watch it though, and I still enjoy it. Yeah,
that's different.
If anything, I'm going to interject it. Shame on you for being a wrestling fan. Shame on you for liking the MCU. If you've put that much time and effort into something, you've committed your own time, which I don't know if you've noticed, Stu, a finite amount of time.
An infinity war of time, if you will.
An infinity, yeah, nice. If anything, if you liked it that much, you could be that desperate to know that as soon as that fucker's coming out, I want to know what happens.
With a Marvel release that's at midnight, right? So effectively, once that film comes out at midnight, whatever Thursday it was, and also a WrestleMania, and again, I think these are two unique scenarios because these both happen, these both occur where we are at a very sort of unsocial time, right? And you're saying, okay, you've dedicated your life to this, right? If I'm a random guy who takes his kids to see the Marvel films and I happen to enjoy them myself, right? I have a job, I have a 9 to 5, and for whatever reason, maybe the fact that I've got to get up for work in the morning, I can't go and see a midnight showing. I can't get out of bed and watch WrestleMania for 7 hours. What right is it of anyone else to tell me what happens when I'm not trying to hear it out, I'm trying to go in and watch this?
You can't stop people from having conversations. What is it, written in the law of Marvel and written in the law of WWE? Don't talk about it. Is there a disclaimer at the end? Guess what? This Avengers Endgame, it doesn't have a final scene. It has a disclaimer from the directors. Don't mention it. Shh. It's a big secret.
Having seen it, I know that's not the case. What I will say is this, there's a huge difference between, I do want to disassociate the two. In the media, TV, film, whatever, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Avengers, all of this. Once it's broadcast, it's broadcast.
It's out there in the public domain to do as you wish.
Again,
so stop trying to be the dream police.
I'm not trying to be the dream police. I'm just trying to be polite. I'm just trying to be polite.
Nazi.
Politeness. Imagine in 2019 we're just polite enough to not ruin something for someone else. Again, difference. I left wrestling out. That was a really sharp turn of voice then. When I come to edit that, I guarantee it'll sound like we've just paused and we haven't. But when it comes to wrestling, there's a difference between what the spoilers you get for wrestling don't tend to be something that's already happened, unless it's like one of them terrible London shows, and like it's recorded but it's not broadcast. They're a burden to read. What I mean with wrestling spoilers specifically is if someone's going to come out, or if something's going to happen, someone's going to win a world title, I'd rather just watch it. I'd rather not know.
Why? Because you still feel the same on the outcome. If it's not the result. See, we've been looking at this in quite a positive light in terms of things we've discussed have been the outcome you wanted, as we mentioned at the top, being the Hollywood outcome. If the outcome's the heel wins, the baddie wins, whatever, the baddie wins at the end of anything you can name, you're still going to feel the same. Triple H usually. Yeah, Triple H wins. Well, so what? Life goes on.
Would I rather
still
come to that
watch
point? Yeah, maybe. Fundamentally, when it comes to wrestling, it's the near falls that make as much of the, I really don't want to, but I can't think of another word to use, artistry than anything else. Like, it's the
painting of the picture,
yes.
The telling of the story.
Yes. And there's a lot of it that, and there have been certain matches where it's like, you go back and you watch old matches that you knew happened long ago, and you knew X wrestler was going to win. And then you watch the match and it's like, did I read that right? Fucking hell, that false finish really got me, sort of thing. A false finish is just that. It will never get you completely unless you watch it in real time. But when we watch WrestleMania live, part of the joy of it, fuck me, am I loath to use that word, is that in real time, I don't know who's going to win. So, mate, some false finishes are better than others, let's put it that way. Triple H Undertaker,
Which
of an era.
Right.
Shawn Michaels super kicks him. If you'd known in advance that moment's got nothing to it. It's erased. If you know in advance who wins that, and you have a rough idea of who wins that, if you'd have got up the following morning to watch that pay-per-view, and again, the pay-per-view's been broadcast, and then you read that The Undertaker wins, the end of an era, when you watch that moment, your reaction is infinitely worse, and I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, I'm just saying it's infinitely worse than watching it in real time when you, I, and all the other dickheads in that stadium thought, oh fuck me, the streak's over.
Nah, man. I think it just comes down to personal preference again, and how invested you are as an individual in a product. Maybe it's a reflection on me again. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just like...
What are you saying that
I don't give enough of shit about...
You're looking at
anything.
it from a sort of, not quite, but an almost out-of-body experience to begin with, and you're seeing the full story, as it were, rather than just that moment.
Yeah, like we said about music, I'd rather have the whole picture in front of me than just see a little thumbnail of it. I want to see the outcome, the start, all in one. It's that thing that's painted to millennials, isn't it? They need that instant gratification all the time. They need the satisfaction.
We're millennials, by the way, I'd like to point out.
I'm not a millennial.
Yeah, we are.
I'm a fuck man.
Truth, look at the dictionary definition.
I was born in the 80s.
Again, millennials is what? I think it's 84 till 99?
82.
Fuck off, you're that old.
No, I'm not that old, really.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
I was born in the
80s. That's a spoiler.
I'm a child of the 80s. I was born on this side of the 80s before it was in the 80s to 90s side.
Again, you're a millennial, I'm telling you.
I'm a fuck man.
Yeah, just look it up.
Alright, well, I'm a millennial, so if anything, that justifies my point.
When you...
Yes, I want that instant gratification. I don't want to be pissing about, like, spending 10 years to find out what's going to happen to bloody Kofi Kingston. I want to know if he's going to win the belt.
But that's the exact point.
Like... And no, that's the other point as well. If I am going to invest all this time into it, and so now we're going to get back onto the MCU, I'd rather have all the films out the same way. You'll notice a fuckload of people are watching or binging a whole series of Netflix because they just want to get through it and not piss about watching one episode of bloody whatever once a week. They'd rather just sit there, consume the entire lot and be like, right, well that's over, let's move on to the next thing.
I think that's choice, because...
It's definitely choice. Yeah, it's personal preference. That's the way I'd rather do it.
Yeah, but when you've got other media, it's choice, and I don't mean choice in terms of like the variety of what you can watch. I mean it's choice in terms of if something comes out all in a one, you can choose to watch it all in a one. You also have to understand if you choose not to watch it all in a one, there's people that have get that. But with things that are released week by week, of which wrestling is one, then the idea of spoilers suddenly doesn't make anywhere near as much sense, especially in the way you're talking, because if you knew what was going to happen, like actually knew what was going to happen on Raw for the next 10 weeks, let's say like up until next year's WrestleMania, you'd be able to sort of, I don't want to say justify is the wrong word, you could come to terms with some of it and go, okay, these matches look good on paper. That looks, it's like looking at a fucking crossword puzzle with a simmer. Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's difficult, both of them. And no satisfaction across the board. But watching it week to week, what I said to you before about that anticipation, it's the idea of the unknown. It could be better. If I know where it ends, if I know where point B is definitively, and when I say definitively, I don't mean Seth Rollins is going to beat Brock Lesnar for the title at WrestleMania 35. What I mean is, when I know the end point is Brock Lesnar's going to lose the title, that's it. I don't know any other details than that, right? I can watch it week to week, and then maybe not week to week, pay-per-view to pay-per-view, it doesn't matter how you want to do it. But if I know exactly what the end point is, then the little bits here and there, they have less of an impact.
Yeah.
The only one I will say is that when I mentioned before, and I am actually really fortunate, and I do think this really goes to show you the state of wrestling, and heavy heart, I watched Raw live for years. I went into a phase whereby I'd record Raw and fast forward through the bullshit that I didn't watch, which again only increased and increased.
That's the good stuff, though. That's the nuances.
Yeah,
you want to pick up on.
Indeed.
That's what builds up to the anticipation.
Again, yeah.
Your argument, not mine.
Shit is still shit.
Yeah, whichever way you paint it, it's still shit.
Yeah.
But that's what builds the story, Stu.
No, it's what should build the story.
Does it? Fuck, man.
It's what should. I'm not saying it's there, but my point being, I've gone from watching weekly, the full thing, to recording it and fast forwarding, and then to what I do now, which is just reading it.
And then just reading just the match reports, all the shit in between, that's out the window.
It's a fucking 2-minute scroll of a Tuesday morning before I go to work. And by about Tuesday midday, I'm texting you going, did I read Raw this week? What happened? Jeez.
Same as last week, don't worry.
But I remember, this was a couple of years ago now, when Shane McMahon returned, do you know, before he fought The Undertaker in the lockbox and all that?
What's in the lockbox?
Who knows?
We shall never know.
Yeah. And this was, I think, his first return for 8 years?
Yeah.
However many years it was.
A few years.
Probably less than that, actually. But it was a genuine surprise. And I remember reading it, and as soon as I read it, I went, oh, fuck, I would have loved to have seen that. Because when I watched it, eventually, as I did on your amazing YouTube highlights, it was good. But I would have loved to have been watching live and not known that he was coming out.
Yeah, but I'd love to be watching live, but only seeing the bit where he comes out. I don't want to see all the bullshit beforehand.
I don't think you can have it both ways.
And that's my argument of wanting the end result, like ASAP. Are you telling me?
No, you don't want the end result. You
never...
just want the good. You don't want the end result.
Exactly. Why do I want all the bullshit that comes in between? Are you telling me you've never read a book and then skipped to the back page?
No.
Are you telling me every Christmas was fucking glorious for you? Everyone knows that the build-up to Christmas is the main event. Everyone with any iota of common sense knows Christmas is the build-up, not the day you unwrap the presents, because guess what? Sorry to break it to you. I'm sorry to break it to you, you fucking young'uns. Yeah. But once you've opened the presents, the excitement has gone. And all you've got is an old lady yakking on the telly for 3 minutes at 3 o'clock.
Oh, so you're watching Linda McMahon promos?
Yeah.
I'd like to point out 2 things there. One, if you want to at some point, I know we've had a few beers today during this podcast, but if you want to do a rant about Christmas, I'm all for that. I don't like Christmas.
I love Christmas.
It's the worst.
I told you I'm all about winter. Summer is for wankers.
Boxing Day is where it's at.
Boxing Day Raw? Is that what you're looking forward to?
But yeah, okay. Back to This, again, this goes back to the idea of what you think, what you know, anticipation versus reality, and all this. And to some degree, I get it, but when you said about the bumps along the road,
the nuances, the shit in Raw,
I'm not saying you have to. I've said all along, as with everything, it should be, and it kind of is, more rewarding if you know that. Kofi Kingston is the example. And again, by the time this fucking comes out, Man City will have won the league and Kevin Owens will be world champion, so fuck this.
Fingers crossed.
No, not fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, sorry. One of them. Touch wood.
Kevin Owens then.
Yeah.
Is that, do you have to know the entire history of Kofi Kingston's career to feel anything in that moment? No. I don't think no, you don't.
Yes,
no, you don't.
You do. That's where I argue. And this comes back to the music thing again. It's the fact that you know the whole picture of the outcome. Yeah, but it makes the outcome so much more meaty. There's so much more to the outcome.
Yeah, again,
when you know everything building up to it. No, it doesn't, because you haven't got to watch everything.
That's my point.
There's no excuse. You can, but my point is, if I read the results to a pay-per-view, if I go and watch a Marvel film, if I read about a Marvel film before I've gone and seen it, there's no shame in that. I think the argument is, the shame is talking about it for people that don't want to hear it. That's the only shameful element of it. My argument is, see the bigger picture. If you're prepared to put the legwork in, then yes, I'm going to agree with you, the outcome feels that much better. But if you've put the legwork in, and then for whatever reason you can't go and see the final product, or you can't see it live, at least read about it. If you want to read about it, then read about it and go and have a natter with your mates about it. Like I said, the shameful thing is, someone hasn't seen it yet, and so you've gone and ruined it for them. Well, guess what? Too fucking bad. You can't police what people talk about.
I think we're talking about and arguing different things. The difference between where I sit and where you sit is probably about a few inches. Pause on that. You put the work in, whether it be for a month, for a day, for 10 minutes when you feel a little bit frisky in the afternoon and your missus is out of the house, you know. Whatever the work you're prepared to put in, you want that instant gratification. Again, that leads back to what I said. There's no way you're being denied that moment. I would argue, I've put the work in, I should get the gratification when I choose. And when it comes to wrestling, I've put the work in already. I've seen all of this before.
So then why try and get over one extra hurdle when you could just get like, well, that was the outcome of that then?
Because it's better to see it than to read it.
I think there's...
It's better to experience it than be told it. Again, I'll go back to my example of, if you know for a fact that The Rock's coming back in next year's Royal Rumble to win it, I'd rather see that in the moment than know it in advance.
Can we use the same example but change the name of The Rock?
What, like Dwayne Johnson?
It might make it sound a little bit more legitimate. Maybe I'm not invested enough in anything to want to put in that legwork. Maybe I see the final hurdle and I'm just like, well, fuck that, I already know what the outcome is, so let's just get straight to it.
I understand the idea, especially in this day and age. And the internet has sort of dwarfed this, and we're going to sort of wrap this up very shortly, because we could literally go on for another hour about the difference between, like, in the 80s, the 90s, certainly the early 90s, maybe less so the late 90s, but even then I think it's different to now. Like, the idea of what you would get if you were watching an Attitude Era card, even like a late sort of stage WCW pay-per-view, you're not getting the level of such and such as backstage. Oh my God, he's going to do a run-in.
I've just had a thought, young Stuart, and I know you said we'll wrap this up shortly, but maybe we'll drag it out for an extra hour.
10 more beers.
Only the listener will know when they can see how much is left of this podcast.
Indeed. 10 more beers. Regardless of how much is left on this podcast.
You should probably be able to guess what I'm going to mention now, talking about spoilers. Have a little think. Tony Schiavone mentioned that Mick Foley, Mankind, win the belt on an episode of Raw when Nitro was aired, because it was live and Raw was pre-recorded. Everyone knows this story if you've ever watched wrestling before.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know that story, that's a fucking category and a half, that is. Fair play to you.
This is what I'm saying, and I think this will pretty much wrap up my side of the argument. People were given a spoiler, yeah?
Yeah.
You can see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yet people then still went and watched it.
Okay. If I kicked you in the balls without warning, just random.
Surprised after the spot.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And alternatively, Eva Marie walks in here and gives you a handy, and I tell you 10 minutes in advance this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So you know she's going to do it, versus you don't know I'm going to kick you in the balls.
You're arguing my point. Of course I want Eva Marie to give me a hand.
I'm not arguing any point, I'm just saying.
You've got it all backwards.
No, I've got it, I know exactly what point is. If the spoiler is a good thing,
yes,
and the surprise is a bad thing, you're going to take the good thing.
Of course. And so go and read a spoiler. Don't worry, kids.
But you don't always know the spoiler's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, but if the spoiler's a bad thing, then so what? Guess what? A week later, because of Hollywood, and because of that's how everyone wants entertainment to end, because of the way of the world and people wanting to make money, aka the executives that own companies, Vince McMahon, the McMahon family, anyone in Hollywood.
Please buy the podcast.
Please buy the podcast. You know, sooner or later, you're going to get the payoff that you want. You're always going to get what you want, because that's what makes money.
I'm more cynical than that. I just don't think...
Well, now it's back on you then. It's not on me anymore. Read a fucking spoiler. Don't worry about it.
No.
Don't worry about it. Go and talk about it in the street. Go and have a conversation with your mates.
No.
Don't be all like shy because old lady Doris hadn't fucking seen the film yet. Old lady Doris hadn't gone and...
Who are you to ruin Doris's enjoyment?
I'm nobody. But at the same time, if you put that time in, if you put the investment in, then get the reward afterwards. Go and have a conversation with your mates and talk about fucking Raw and SmackDown. Don't worry about it. If she cared about it, if she cared about it that much, then she should have been up at that time to go and watch the film.
She was. Right? She has to get out of bed like 3 or 4 times a night.
Exactly. So that ruined the film for her. Either way, look, if it's out in the public domain and you enjoy it and you want to watch it, go and have a conversation with your mates about it afterwards. Don't be shy about where you talk about what happened at the end of WrestleMania, trying to get away from the MCU there.
Yeah, we need to try and at least tenuously bring this back to wrestling and bring this to a close. I think there's a huge difference, and I think we've spent this entire fucking podcast arguing the same point, but from the different side of the table, quite literally, which is you've a problem with once it's out, not being able to talk about it, whereas I've a problem knowing before it's out, and I think that's it. I literally think that's the definition of where we stand.
All right, Stu, the day before WrestleMania, a great big bus decides it wants to come and plough you over, yeah?
Yeah.
And
we're getting all existential again, like, what's it matter?
Yeah, just a quick one.
Okay.
Rather than, we're not even going to talk about wrestling, let's talk about something that's near and dear to your heart. So let's not talk about the MCU either. Let's talk about Liverpool. The day before Liverpool win the league, touch wood, you get knocked down by a bus.
Yeah.
That's it. GG, Stu.
I hope you're not suggesting that I have to die for us to win the league.
Oh, touch wood.
All I'm saying is, if there's no more episodes of this podcast, Liverpool win the league, jeez.
It's all right, me and Billy will continue.
No, you fucking won't. I know you fucking won't.
Would you rather know?
No.
You still wouldn't want to know. You go to your grave.
That's more to do with I don't want to know when I die than I want to know whether Liverpool win the league.
That's a story for another day.
In that scenario, if I know that Liverpool win the league, I don't get the satisfaction out of it because I don't see it. I don't experience it. That's the whole point. Spoilers. You kind of need to experience it. You kind of need to see it. I think basically what we need to do is, this has been Beyond The Beermat. I think we both need to, for the very last time, off air, touch wood, and then I think we'll both be a lot more calmer, as it were.
Calmer the wrestler?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Terrible end to a terrible joke. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.